The dinner rolls sat untouched on my plate as I adjusted the sling supporting my left arm. The cast felt heavy, foreign. Across the Thanksgiving table, my daughter Jennifer smiled at me with that practiced patience you'd use on a confused child. "Dad," Kyle already explained what happened. "You fell in the garage, remember?" Kyle, my son-in-law, nodded sympathetically from his seat beside her. "You were reaching for that box on the top shelf, Bob. I told you I'd get it for you, but you insisted." His voice carried just the right amount of concern, almost too perfect. I looked down at the white plaster encasing my forearm. "Right, the box. See?" Jennifer reached over and squeezed my good hand. "The doctor said some confusion is normal after a fall at your age. That's why Kyle thinks we should really discuss the assisted living options." "I'm 67, not 97, I said quietly, "and my memory is fine." Kyle's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Only someone trained to read micro-expressions would catch it. Lucky for me, I'd spent 30 years with the FBI analyzing exactly that. "Of course it is, Bob," he said smoothly. "We're just worried." "3 falls in 2 months?" the doctor said. "The doctor you chose," I interrupted. "Dr. Harrison, your golfing buddy." The tension at the table shifted. Jennifer's other siblings, my son Marcus and daughter-in-law Diane, exchanged glances. They'd driven in from Colorado for the holiday, and I could see the uncertainty in their faces. Had Dad really become that forgetful old man? "Dad, that's not fair," Jennifer said, her voice strained. "Kyle was trying to help. He found you the best geriatric specialist in Portland." I took a slow breath, buying time. The small recording device in my shirt pocket was getting all of this. The pinhole camera I'd installed in the kitchen clock was capturing every angle. After 30 years of building fraud cases, I knew evidence was everything. "You're right, sweetheart. I'm sorry." I forced a smile. "Must be the pain medication making me irritable." Kyle relaxed slightly. "Perfectly understandable. Why don't we enjoy this wonderful meal Jennifer prepared, and we can discuss everything else later?" But we wouldn't discuss it later. Because in exactly 23 minutes, Detective Sarah Chen would be ringing my doorbell, and Kyle Preston's carefully constructed house of cards was about to collapse. Let me back up 6 weeks to when this really started. It was a Tuesday morning in early October when I first noticed something was wrong. I'd woken up in my recliner instead of my bed, with no memory of how I got there. The TV was on a channel I never watched. My coffee mug sat on the side table, still half full and stone cold. At first, I'd brushed it off. I was retired after all. Maybe I'd dozed off watching the game. But then, it happened again and again. Always on the nights when Kyle and Jennifer came over for dinner. The 4th time, I woke up with my car keys in my hand and my jacket on. According to my security camera, the one I'd never mentioned to anyone, I'd been wandering around my backyard at 2 a.m., completely disoriented. That's when the forensic accountant in me kicked in. Patterns. Always look for the patterns. I started keeping detailed notes. Every time Kyle and Jennifer visited, I documented what we ate, what we drank, how I felt afterward. I set up additional cameras. I bought a home drug testing kit and started checking my water, my coffee, my food. It took 2 weeks, but I found it. Benzodiazepines in my evening tea. The same tea Kyle always insisted on making for me to help me relax. Small doses, carefully administered. Enough to cause confusion, memory loss, disorientation. Enough to make me look like I was developing dementia. I'd seen this before. Not personally, but in case files. Financial predators who targeted elderly parents, slowly building a case for incompetence. Get power of attorney. Access bank accounts. Transfer assets. By the time anyone noticed, the money was gone and the victim was too confused to testify clearly. But Kyle had made one critical mistake. He'd tried this on a man who'd spent 3 decades investigating financial crimes. A man who knew every trick, every scam, every manipulation tactic. I didn't confront him. Instead, I started documenting everything. I poured out the drug tea when he wasn't looking. I pretended to drink it, then acted appropriately confused an hour later. I let him think it was working. Meanwhile, I dug deeper. I accessed my own financial records carefully, using VPNs and encrypted connections that Kyle's amateur monitoring software couldn't detect. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 6 months, Kyle had been laying groundwork. He'd befriended my financial advisor, my attorney, my doctor. He'd arranged for consultations about my declining health. He'd even drafted power of attorney documents, waiting for the right moment to present them. More disturbing, I found evidence he'd been doing this to his own mother 3 years ago. She'd died in a nursing home, convinced she had Alzheimer's. Her assets, nearly $500,000, had been transferred to Kyle's control 2 months before her death. No autopsy was ever performed. I thought about going to the police immediately, but I'd prosecuted enough cases to know the challenges. He could claim he was genuinely concerned about my health. The drugging could be explained away, contaminated supplements, accidental medication mix-ups. And I'd look paranoid, a confused old man making wild accusations. No, I needed something ironclad. I needed him to reveal his intentions clearly, with witnesses present. I needed him to hang himself. So I set a trap. 3 weeks ago, I fell in my garage. I called Kyle instead of 911, knowing he'd rush over. I'd already loosened a shelf in the garage, scattered some boxes around. When he arrived, I was sitting on the floor, holding my arm, moaning about the pain. "Bob, what happened?" He'd rushed in, all concern. "The shelf. I was reaching for the Christmas decorations. It just gave way." I watched his eyes, saw the calculation. This was an opportunity. "We need to get you to the hospital," he said. "But Bob, this is serious. This is the 3rd fall. We need to talk about whether you can safely live alone anymore." "I don't want to be a burden," I'd said weakly, playing the part, "You're not a burden. But maybe it's time to consider." "Well, there are wonderful facilities. Jennifer and I have been researching them, just in case." "I suppose you're right," I'd said, letting my voice shake. "Maybe I'm not as sharp as I used to be." The relief in his eyes was unmistakable. "Don't worry. We'll take care of everything." At the hospital, I'd insisted on a specific orthopedic surgeon, an old friend from my FBI days, who understood what I needed. The X-rays showed a clean break, nothing suspicious. Dr. Martinez had cast it properly, but added a detail Kyle wouldn't notice. A date stamp in the plaster that would prove when the break actually occurred. Because 3 days before my fall, I'd actually broken my arm. Not in the garage, in a controlled setting at Dr. Martinez's office, with proper anesthesia and witnesses. A clean, simple fracture that would heal perfectly, but would give me the physical evidence I needed. The staged fall was just theater, but it served its purpose. It convinced Kyle his plan was working. Over the next 3 weeks, I let him accelerate. I forgot conversations. I lost my car keys. I called Jennifer from the grocery store, claiming I didn't remember how I got there. Each incident carefully staged, each one pushing Kyle closer to making his move. And yesterday, he finally did it. Jennifer called me, her voice tight with worry. "Dad, Kyle and I need to talk to you. Can we do Thanksgiving dinner at your place this year? Kyle thinks it's important we're all together." "Of course, sweetheart. Is everything okay?" We're worried about you, Dad. We want to discuss some options for your care." "I understand," I'd said gently. "I've been thinking about it too. Maybe it's time." I could almost hear Kyle's satisfaction through the phone. That night, I'd called Detective Sarah Chen. We'd worked together years ago on a Medicare fraud case. She was now with the Portland PD's Financial Crimes Unit. "Sarah, I need a favor, and I need it to be completely off the books until tomorrow." I'd laid out everything. The evidence I'd collected, the pattern of drugging, the financial maneuvering, my suspicions about Kyle's mother. "Bob, this is Jesus. You're sure?" "I've got lab results on the tea. Video evidence of him preparing it. Financial documents showing his planning. And I've got him on recording discussing taking care of me with someone I believe is his accomplice, a nursing home administrator who gets kickbacks for new patients. We'll need a warrant for the recordings." "Already covered." Single-party consent state. I was part of every conversation. And the cameras are in my own home. She'd been quiet for a moment. What do you need from me? Thanksgiving dinner. My house, 4 p.m. Bring backup. I'm going to get him to lay it all out in front of witnesses. Now, sitting at my dinner table with my family around me, I checked my watch. 4:17 p.m. Detective Chen was running a few minutes late, but that was fine. I had time. Dad, Marcus said carefully, Jennifer mentioned you've been having some trouble lately. I wish you'd called me. Your father's been very independent, Kyle interjected smoothly. Sometimes too independent for his own good. But we all want what's best for you, Bob. That's why Jennifer and I have been researching some excellent care facilities. They're not care facilities, I said quietly. They're nursing homes. Well, assisted living then. The point is, you'd have help. 24-hour care, medical staff on site. No more falls. No more freedom, you mean? Jennifer's face crumpled. Dad, please don't make this harder. We're trying to help. After Mom died, you've been alone for 3 years. We just want you safe. And there it was, the guilt card. Kyle had coached her well. Use the dead wife, the concern, the family obligation. Make it about love instead of control. I know, sweetheart, and I love you for worrying. I looked directly at Kyle. But before we discuss my future, I think we should discuss the past. Specifically, the past 6 months. Kyle's smile didn't waver, but I saw his hand tighten on his water glass. I'm not sure what you mean. The tea, Kyle. The special tea you always make for me. Dad, Kyle's just trying to help you relax, Jennifer started. With benzodiazepines? I pulled out my phone, laid it on the table. I had it tested, 4 different samples over 4 weeks, all contaminated with the same prescription sedative, the kind that causes memory loss and confusion in elderly patients. The table went silent. Marcus stood up slowly. What are you saying, Dad? I'm saying Kyle has been systematically drugging me to make me appear incompetent, to lay the groundwork for taking control of my assets. That's insane. Kyle pushed back from the table. Jennifer, your father is clearly paranoid. This is exactly the kind of delusional thinking that proves he needs professional care. Sit down, Kyle. My voice carried the authority of 30 years as a federal investigator. I'm not finished. I don't have to listen to this. The doorbell rang. Kyle froze. Some instinct, some guilty conscience, made him realize this wasn't a coincidence. Dad, who's that? Jennifer asked, confused. That would be the police. I stood up, my broken arm a physical reminder of how far I'd gone to build this case. Detective Sarah Chen, specifically. She has a warrant to search this house for evidence of elder abuse and financial fraud. Kyle's face went white. You can't. This is entrapment. It's not entrapment when you're voluntarily committing crimes, I said calmly. I walked to the door, opened it. Detective Chen stood there with 2 uniformed officers, Mr. Matthews, Mr. Preston. We have some questions. The next hour was chaos. Jennifer crying, demanding explanations. Marcus stunned into silence. Diane trying to comfort Jennifer while shooting horrified looks at Kyle. And Kyle himself, watching his plan dissolve, trying different tactics. Denial, anger, bargaining, claiming I was delusional, claiming he was trying to help. But I'd built the case too well. The lab results from the tea. The video evidence of him preparing it, of his reaction when I pretended to be confused. The financial documents showing his preparations to seize control of my accounts. And the smoking gun, recorded phone calls between Kyle and Martin Schaefer, administrator of Sunset View Nursing Home, discussing the referral fee Kyle would receive for bringing me in as a patient. When Detective Chen pulled out the file on Kyle's mother, the suspicious death, the rapid asset transfer, the lack of autopsy, Kyle finally broke. She would have wanted me to have it, he said, his voice hollow. She was going to die anyway. The money was just sitting there. Jennifer's sob cut through the room. Kyle, what are you saying? And Bob, he's alone. He's got no one but you. The money's going to end up with the government anyway when he dies. I'm 67, not dying, I said flatly. I swim a mile 3 times a week. My cholesterol is perfect. I was planning to live another 20 years, at least. Kyle looked at me with something like hatred. You trapped me. You broke your own arm just to trap me. I documented your crimes. There's a difference. The officers cuffed him. Read him his rights. As they led him toward the door, he looked back at Jennifer. I did this for us, for our future. He's just one old man who is going to waste it all anyway. Get him out of here, Detective Chen said quietly. After they left, I sat back down at the table. The turkey was cold. The mashed potatoes had congealed. Thanksgiving was ruined. Jennifer wouldn't look at me. You let me defend him. For weeks. You let me think you were losing your mind. If I'd told you, he would have denied it. You would have had to choose who to believe. This way, you heard it from him. I married a monster. You married a con artist. I corrected gently. There's a difference. And you couldn't have known. Marcus finally spoke. Dad, you broke your own arm? On purpose? I needed physical evidence that couldn't be explained away. The drugging alone, he could have claimed contamination, accident, misunderstanding. But the fall, the injury, combined with his behavior, his financial preparations, it painted a complete picture. That's insane, Diane whispered. That's thorough. I looked at my cast. It'll heal. I'll be fine. Jennifer stood up abruptly. I need to. I can't. She walked out of the room. A moment later, I heard her car start. Marcus looked torn. Should I go after her? Give her time. This is a lot to process. Dad. He shook his head. I don't even know what to say. You played dead to catch a killer. I played confused to catch a thief. Different thing. I tried to smile. But I understand the sentiment. They left shortly after, promising to call, to check on me. The house felt empty. I sat in my study, my arm throbbing despite the pain medication, and wondered if I'd done the right thing. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry for everything. I typed back. None of this is your fault. Come over tomorrow. We'll talk. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, okay. I love you, Dad. Love you too, sweetheart. I set the phone down and looked at the photos on my desk. My wife, Sarah, smiling at me from a dozen different moments. Gone 3 years now from cancer. She would have been proud of how I handled this. She always said my obsessive attention to detail was annoying, but occasionally useful. I protected our family, I told her photo. Just like I promised. The broken arm throbbed again, a reminder of what I'd sacrificed. But it was worth it. Justice wasn't always clean. Sometimes it required sacrifice. Sometimes it required becoming the thing you were trying to prevent, broken, vulnerable, damaged. But in the end, the truth came out. The predator was caught. My family was safe. And that was worth a broken arm. Worth the pain, the deception, the weeks of playing confused and helpless. Because some lessons can only be taught the hard way. And Kyle Preston had just learned that you don't con a con hunter. You don't prey on someone who spent 30 years catching predators exactly like you. My daughter would heal from this. She was strong. She'd divorce Kyle, rebuild her life, maybe even find someone worthy of her someday. My arm would heal. 6 weeks in a cast, then physical therapy. By spring, I'd be back to my regular swimming routine. And Kyle would spend the next several years learning a different kind of lesson. The kind taught in a federal prison cell, where financial predators who target the elderly aren't exactly popular. I stood up, wincing at the pain, and walked to the kitchen. The Thanksgiving turkey sat on the counter, barely touched. I cut myself a slice, made a plate, heated it in the microwave. Then I sat down, alone in my quiet house, and had my Thanksgiving dinner. I had a lot to be thankful for. My health, my family, my skills, my ability to protect the people I love. And most of all, I was thankful that my daughter would never have to wonder, years from now, where her inheritance went. Would never have to sit in a nursing home, confused and drugged, wondering how she got there. 'Cause I'd stopped it, the hard way, the painful way, but I'd stopped it. Justice isn't always pretty, but it's always worth it. I took another bite of turkey and smiled. The game was over. The good guys won. And somewhere in Portland, Kyle Preston was learning that teaching old dogs new tricks is hard. But teaching young predators not to mess with old investigators? That's a lesson that sticks.